Assalamualaikum and hi Sumi Reading Squad. Today is the story time for you all. So just relax and listen to the story. Today we are going to read a story from Treasured Classics by Michael Hicks. Little Red Riding Hood. It's a story about a Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time, in a cottage near a wood, there lived a cheerful little girl. Her grandmother, who lived on the other side of the wood, had made a beautiful red cape and hood for her, and everybody called her Red Riding Hood. One day Red Riding Hood's mother said, "Your grandmother has been ill, so I want you to take her some nice fresh bread and jam and see if she is better." Little Red Riding Hood packed a basket filled with fresh bread and jam and immediately set out to visit her grandmother. Her mother called out to her as she left, "Stay on the path, do not play along the way, and do not talk to strangers." Here is Little Red Riding Hood, and she is wearing a red hood and a red cape. She is going to visit her grandmother with a basket filled with fresh bread and jam. But Little Red Riding Hood decided to cut through the woods so that she could gather a bouquet of wild flowers for her grandmother. In the wood, she met an old wolf. Now this wolf wanted to eat her up, but he was afraid to do so because of some woodcutters at work nearby. He asked her where she was going, and when she told him, he ran off as fast as he could toward the grandmother's house. He planned to have a meal of the grandmother, wait for Red Riding Hood, and then eat her up as well. Little Red Riding Hood, finding it very pleasant in the wood, dawdled along, picked wild flowers and chasing butterflies. Here is the Little Red Riding Hood. She met a wild wolf in the woods. Oh my God, it's a wolf! Meanwhile, the wolf had reached the grandmother's house and knocked gently on the door. "Who is there?" asked a voice. The wolf spoke in a tiny voice, pretending to be Little Red Riding Hood. "It is I, Little Red Riding Hood. I have brought you a basket of fresh bread, jam that mother has made, and flowers I picked for you in the wood." Hearing that, the grandmother, who was ill in bed, called out, "Pull the latch and come inside." The wolf did as she said. He rushed into the room and chased the poor woman around the bed. The grandmother took refuge in a closet and held the door tight to keep the old wolf out. But just then the wolf heard a tapping at the door. The old wolf climbed into the grandmother's bed, hiding himself underneath the blankets. He put on the grandmother's nightcap and nightgown and called out, making his voice as soft as possible, "Who is there?" He called out, making his voice as soft as possible, "Who is there?" "It is I, Little Red Riding Hood. I have brought you a basket of fresh bread jam that mother has made, and flowers I picked for you in the wood." "Pull the latch and come inside," replied the wolf. When Little Red Riding Hood came into the room, the wolf, trying to speak in a feeble voice, said, "Put the basket on the table and come sit and visit your poor sick grandmother." So Little Red Riding Hood sat down. But when she saw how strange her grandmother looked, she said, "Oh, grandmother, what big arms you have!" Here is the Little Red Riding Hood and the wolf who is acting as her grandmother. Let's see what's happened next. "All the better to hug you with, my dear," answered the wolf. "Oh, grandmother, what big ears you have! All the better to hear you with, my dear." "Oh, grandmother, what big eyes you have! All the better to see you with, my dear." Little Red Riding Hood looked closer and then said, "Oh, grandmother, what big teeth you have! All the better to eat you with," said the wolf, and he sprang from the bed and seized the little girl. At that moment a woodcutter who was working nearby heard Red Riding Hood's screams and quickly ran into the house, where he chased the wicked wolf into the wood. Soon the woodcutter returned and joined Little Red Riding Hood and her grandmother for a slice of fresh bread and jam. Little Red Riding Hood kissed her grandmother good-bye, and the woodcutter carried Little Red Riding Hood safely home, singing, "A little girl must keep in mind what her mother's told her. A little girl must wisdom find by the time that she is older." Here is the Little Red Riding Hood saying goodbye to its grandmother and the woodcutter. The end of the story. But don't forget to like, share and subscribe to join Sumi Reading Squad and be ready for the next reading class. Read more and be good. Bye bye. Assalamualaikum.